This is New Media Interchange, where we talk about the media world beyond mainstream television and radio, including podcasting, YouTube, live streaming, gaming, and more. I'm your host, Douglas C. Welch, pioneer podcaster, blogger, and writer. In today's show, ABC tries out VR news coverage, Apple introduces the next Apple TV, TechRepublic details 20 years of VR at NASA, why everyone should think like a producer, and the next installment in our educational In the Classroom series. More after this. Today's show was brought to you by Audible.com. Even though we love new media like podcasting and YouTube, we also love all types of books here at New Media Interchange. If you love audiobooks, you can support us and Third Pass Media by starting your free 30-day trial with Audible today. Choose from over 100,000 books, including Walking in This World, The Practical Art of Creativity by Julia Cameron. Visit audibletrial.com/thirdpass or use the link in the show notes today. This week in New Media News. ABC News, in a partnership with Jaunt VR, which I previously mentioned here on New Media Interchange, have developed a new virtual reality hub focused on news content. Their first production focuses on attempts to protect important antiquities from the fighting in Damascus, Syria, and take viewers on a tour of the city, documenting some of the endangered treasures.
Up here on the wall of the citadel, Damascus lies out before you. The capital of Syria, which thousands have fled to neighboring countries and Europe. This is one of the oldest continuously inhabited cities in the world. Join me on this tour of some of its most important sites, threatened by this devastating war. In the distance there, to the left, those mountains near the border with Lebanon have seen some fierce fighting.
While 360-degree video certainly has its place in news coverage, for myself, I fear a bit the intense intimacy that VR news stories could bring to the news. In many cases, even the 2D television news footage of today can feel far too intimate and far too disturbing, and VR news has the potential to traumatize viewers deeply if not used in a responsible manner. Being much more immersive, VR news footage brings an entirely new dimension to news coverage. It's one thing to see bullets being fired and people running in fear. It's quite another to be immersed in that experience as a participant. The clip was produced with the help of Jaunt VR, an immersive content studio specializing in creating 360-degree virtual video experiences. Jaunt has previously partnered with advertisers to create the first wave of streamable 360-degree video ads for YouTube. The company has also been selected to serve as Google's preferred partner for all future VR and immersive content. ABC and Jaunt deliver their VR content via the ABC News website and via Jaunt VR's iOS and Android smartphone apps using Google Cardboard as an immersive viewer. Even if you don't yet have a Google Cardboard VR device for your phone, you can still view the 360-degree experience on your computer and laptop using your mouse to look around the scene as it's presented. It isn't perfect, but it can give you an idea of what ABC and Jaunt VR are trying to accomplish. You can get your own Google Cardboard VR device from Amazon.com and links on the Google site. In fact, I just ordered one of my own so I can increase my own experience with VR as it grows. See the show notes for direct links to purchase your own, links to the ABC News content, and additional information. In more VR news, TechRepublic has a great in-depth article on 20 years of virtual reality work at NASA that's helped train astronauts for the unique challenges of working in space. For NASA, VR started out the same way it did for a lot of other folks in the 1990s. Hey, here's this thing. Is there anything we can actually do with it? However, that legitimate use they'd been looking for materialized in the form of a repair mission to the Hubble Space Telescope. Soon after the Hubble launched in 1990, excitement gave way to disappointment. The $2.5 billion telescope was blurry. The fix would be STS-61, a 1993 mission to correct a problem with the mirror and scrub the proverbial egg off the face of the telescope. This is an amazingly detailed article by author Aaron Carson and delves deeply not only into the technology, but also the people involved in applying virtual reality to real-world, or perhaps I should say real space, problems. Carson also has a short audio piece on the site explaining how she came to write the article. I highly recommend reading this article as a real-world example of how virtual reality can be developed and applied in creative and important ways. You can read the entire article on TechRepublic using the link in the show notes. One of the benefits of using a smartphone to shoot video is that the built-in gyroscopes and accelerometers can be used with add-on software to smooth and stabilize footage. One software example is Instagram's hyperlapse software, which combines stabilization features with time-lapse to produce amazingly ethereal, motion-based time-lapse video. In an effort to bring post-process stabilization to more traditional cameras, a crowdsourced device is being introduced, the Stabil XP. This hardware add-on attaches to any camera and records the motion of that camera in real time. That data can then be used in later processing to provide some excellent stabilization based on the demo video on the site.
Hello, my name is Adrien Farrugia, and this is Stabil XP. This new device will solve all of your video stabilization issues with any kind of video camera. The way it works is very simple. You just have to plug your Stabil XP behind your camera and that's it. You are ready to shoot your video as usual, but with a video stabilization quality very close to the best Steadicam system you can get.
I'll be watching this project closely to see how the crowdfunding of Stabil XP proceeds. It's quite an interesting project and seems an obvious way of adding stabilization to any camera. That said, I wonder if we won't see stabilization systems like this integrated directly into future cameras. It seems like an obvious improvement, seeing how useful smartphone stabilization features already are, along with the further miniaturization and enhanced capabilities of motion sensors available today. I think most cameras could include similar technology without increasing their size or cost in any dramatic fashion. Last week saw another big announcement event from Apple, including the new iPad Pro, iPhone 6s, and, most importantly for new media creators, a new version of the Apple TV, which hopes to better compete with the top two media players, Roku and Google Chromecast. Along with speed and video quality improvements, Apple TV is adding several new features to the player. The biggest change is that the new Apple TV now runs tvOS, a derivative of the iOS that powers Apple's iPhones and iPads. This means that developers for that platform can easily upgrade their apps to run on Apple TV and easily provide app-like features or bring app-based content to our larger screens. Helping to drive that app development will be the new Apple Remote that brings several features from the iOS world to the Apple TV. First is the new motion control features of the remote, which allow it greater functionality as a remote and also doubles as a Wii-like motion game controller for iOS games that will be ported to Apple TV. Along with these motion controls are a touchpad surface that allows for the use of iOS-like gestures like swiping, clicking, and tapping to navigate media and play games. One large improvement is that the new Apple TV remote now uses Bluetooth for communication with the Apple TV instead of the line-of-sight based infrared. I can't believe infrared remotes are still so ubiquitous in electronic devices when many people are placing their devices in media centers or even media closets far outside the reach of a normal remote. Bluetooth will provide a much more reliable remote control experience and also provides the extra bandwidth necessary for touch and game control. Finally, the new Apple TV includes Siri-controlled voice commands for the first time. This allows for voice-controlled searching of content, information retrieval like weather, sports scores, news, accessing settings, and more. There's even an interesting "what did he just say" feature that will rewind, turn on captions, and replay a moment from a video. I would expect that these Siri features will continue to expand as apps start arriving for Apple TV once it's released. There have recently been rumors that Apple was trying to create deals with various broadcast and cable channels to provide a la carte streaming shows via the Apple TV. While this hasn't come to fruition yet, it seems that Apple might be using apps to go around licensing restrictions with some content providers. Major League Baseball demoed its Apple TV app during the presentation, and it seemed to me that it clearly presented a way to bring their content directly to the Apple TV via an app without additional licensing or deals required for broadcast or cable content. Using content already available via iOS apps would seem to be a much easier method of gaining traditional television content for the Apple TV than trying to navigate the complicated and somewhat treacherous negotiations with mainstream networks. The new Apple TV will be available this October for a price of $149 directly from Apple and other retailers. A few days after the Apple TV announcement, Twitter's Periscope mobile live streaming service announced that it will be creating an Apple TV app to bring Periscope content directly to the big screen in your home. I think this is a great idea. Over my years of podcasting and other content creation, I've often advised people to, quote, get on TV. Now, of course, I wasn't recommending that they try to get traditional deals with mainstream broadcasters, but rather get their content on the box that's already in everyone's home. Bringing Periscope to the Apple TV is a great way of doing just that. It brings potentially great live content directly into the traditional home viewing environment, and I think greatly expands its potential as a news and entertainment source. I also found it interesting that soon after this announcement, Periscope also announced better support for landscape video in their app. As you might have heard in my previous episode, I think the current mobile-driven trend towards vertical videos will eventually revert back to landscape once viewers start watching on larger and more capable devices. I see this announcement as a sign that even Periscope realizes that watching vertical video on a big screen TV is a horrible experience, and it's seeing a need to support both vertical mobile experiences as well as landscape living room watching of their users' content. And finally, in more new media hardware news, it's rumored that Google will be releasing version 2 of its extremely popular Chromecast media player near the end of September 2015. I've loved my Chromecast over the last year or so, and it quickly became my media player of choice for everything except podcasts, which were more accessible on my Apple TV, and movie rentals, which I tended to buy through Amazon Instant Video. Rumors indicate better Wi-Fi support, easier connection to the Chromecast, enhanced support for backdrop, which allows for the passive presentations of photos and information when the television is idle, and a separate Chromecast audio device, which could be used to easily stream music throughout your home or office. I'll certainly be watching the release of this new Chromecast and can see myself upgrading almost immediately based on these new features alone. The producer mentality. Everyone needs to think like a producer. Every day I meet a lot of different people from a lot of different industries, but due to the fact that my wife is a television writer and screenwriting teacher and I live in Los Angeles, I'm especially surrounded by entertainment-minded people and those directly involved in the mainstream entertainment industry. The definition of this industry has expanded dramatically of late with the inclusion of various YouTube, podcasting, and blogging celebrities. Whenever I start talking new media and podcasting with these folks, they often inevitably turn the discussion of finding a mainstream broadcast network, pitching a show, and having someone pay them to make the show. While that might have worked in the old world, although none too well, in today's environment, I think a different mindset is required. Today, you don't necessarily pitch a show to production companies and wait for someone else to say they liked it. Instead, you produce it first, in some form, yourself. That's right. Everyone is now, or at least I think should be, a producer of their own content. We have spent years being managed by agents, managers, directors, producers, currying their favor in the slim hope that they might cast us in their latest show, hire us to write their script, or produce our heartfelt project. That world is quickly changing and morphing into something quite different. Sure, the mainstream entertainment business will still be with us for the foreseeable future, but now there are a host of other opportunities available to us all. One reason for these new opportunities is that the past limiting factor of distribution has finally been broken. This should be obvious when videos on YouTube are being watched by millions of people and podcasts have listenerships of tens or hundreds of thousands. For the first time ever, you're able to produce your show and deliver it to the screens of millions of people, not just in America, but around the world. You don't have to have your project approved by a TV network, radio conglomerate, or movie studio. You gather your money, your equipment, and your utmost creativity and make it happen. Sure, if your creation garners enough attention, the big media might come calling, but this shouldn't necessarily be your end goal. Increasingly, as internet distribution models continue to open up and money starts to flow into these new media options, you might find that you can make more money without the network and studios of today. Even better, you'll retain more control over your content and retain more of the income derived from it. There's no need to pay the middleman anymore, unless they're truly providing a service. So, now's the time for everyone to start thinking like a producer. What would you love to create? Who would like to hear it, see it, or read it? How can you reach out to them? How much will it cost? More importantly, the question should be, how can I get started today? Far too often I see entertainment creatives get bogged down in analysis paralysis over what they should produce, how they should do it, who should they work with, and more. This is far too common and often prevents projects from ever seeing the light of day. In new media, as it was in the earliest days of film and television, you sometimes just have to do something and see how it works. Each production becomes a lesson for every production that follows. Each show, each episode, each song, each video changes and improves each time. In new media, you have the space to develop your content. It doesn't have to be perfect from episode 1. Heck, even with mainstream television, pilot episodes are rarely the best episode of a series, or even a season. Everyone, actors, directors, writers, crew, have to discover what the show is about, how it works, who the characters are, over time. They're rarely, if ever, fully formed at the outset. Even better these days, the cost involved in spreading your message are rapidly approaching zero. Days, months, and years spent gathering financial backing are much less of an issue in new media than traditional media. Using today's technology, you can produce high-quality audio and video productions for a fraction of what the equipment alone would have cost you only 5 years ago. Now sure, if you want to do a traditional 60-minute television drama with a cast of 10 or more people, yes, you're going to need some serious financial backing for that. What else can you produce, though, while you're trying to raise that money? You might find that smaller project turns out better and leads to better opportunities than the more traditional project. My message? You need to get the producer mentality today and start creating your own content. Find those around you with great ideas or content and start producing for them. Think like a producer, and you'll quickly find a wide variety of opportunities around you. Now, I realize that not everyone wants to become a producer. That's fine. But those people, at the very least, will need to partner up with someone, perhaps you, who does have the producer mentality and can bring their projects to fruition. The days of waiting on agents, managers, and the traditional gatekeepers is no longer required, and in most cases, no longer advised. In fact, in today's entertainment world, waiting on anyone is probably not in your own best interest. It's time to put on your producer's hat and start creating your best ideas today. In this week's Hardware Hot List is a great article from Marco Arment at marco.org entitled Podcasting Microphones Mega Review. In this article, Marco takes on an expansive overview of the microphones commonly used and available for podcasters and how they measure up both alone and in comparison.
This is a test of the Blue Yeti, a USB microphone. It has long been recommended as an inexpensive starter mic for podcasters, and it's a convenient all-in-one package with a headphone jack and even a mute button. It comes with a desk stand, but the desk stand keeps the mic pretty far from a normal seated head position. This is how it sounds at a more common speaking distance of a few inches away. At close distance like this, it is very sensitive to plosives and requires a pop filter.
There was obviously a huge amount of work put into developing this article, and I'm sure that many podcasters and YouTubers will greatly appreciate it. There are many audio samples from the different microphones using both his and his wife's voice, short reviews of each microphone, a discussion about USB versus XLR connected microphones, preamps, microphone booms, shock mounts, and more. Some of the microphones reviewed here include the Rode Podcaster, the Blue Yeti, the Heil PR40, and they cover a range of both dynamic and condenser microphones, as well as USB and XLR connected microphones. If you're looking to buy a microphone for podcasting, live streaming, or YouTube video recording, this would be a great place to start your research. What are your favorite tools for making new media? I'd love to know so I can share them in future Hardware Hot List entries. Send them along via email to nmi@thirdpass.media or via Twitter at nmipodcast. In the classroom this week, I have an article on one way to improve lighting in your videos and a way to use the Instagram Hyperlapse app to capture amazingly smooth footage even if you don't need a time lapse. First up is an article by Noam Kroll from Premium Beat, Add Beautiful Light to Your Scenes with a China Ball. Even if you aren't familiar with film lighting, You've probably seen one of these paper lanterns at your local IKEA or lighting store. A circular, white paper lampshade is lit with one bulb inside and produces a wonderful soft and diffuse light for overall general lighting in your videos. It's a much cheaper alternative and a bit more flexible than standard video lighting softboxes. The China ball is one of my favorite tools to work with on set. The quality of light from a China ball can be absolutely beautiful. It's very soft, forgiving, and can really wrap around your talent's face. Kroll includes 3 great examples on how to use a China ball light, along with representative photos, and also links to a video from Film Riot on how to build your own China ball rig and use it in your own work.
A China ball, which is also called a paper lantern or a Chinese lantern, is a paper ball that houses a light which floats in the center to create a nice omnidirectional light. That was a really good description of it. Kind of proud of myself right now.
You can file this next In the Classroom article under Why Didn't I Think of That? In an article on The Verge, writer Ross Miller shares his tip on how to create some great motion-stabilized video footage from your iPhone using Instagram's Hyperlapse app. If you're not familiar with Hyperlapse, it's an application that uses the motion sensors in your phone to create ultra-smooth time-lapse videos that don't require you to stay in one place or lock down your camera in one position. I shot some test videos with it as we'd driven down the freeway or hiked in the mountains. Miller reminds us all, though, that Hyperlapse isn't limited to just shooting time-lapse video. You can use its stabilization features to record real-time video and audio for inclusion in your projects. All it takes is using the Hyperlapse app as normal to create your video, but then, at the end, it asks you to set the speed to display the video. Simply select 1x or the raw, standard video recorded by the phone. This gives you some really great smooth video without the time-lapse effect. I know I'm going to try out Hyperlapse when I create the next episode of my series, A Minute in the Garden. While my handheld footage is usually pretty stable, I think using Hyperlapse will take it to the next level. You can download the Hyperlapse app directly from the iTunes App Store. I'll include links to that as well as to Miller's article and some further information on the technology behind Hyperlapse in the show notes. That's it for this episode of New Media Interchange, where we talk about the media world beyond mainstream television and radio, including podcasting, YouTube, live streaming, gaming, and more. Some music written and produced by Kevin MacLeod at incompetech.com and used under Creative Commons license by the author. New Media Interchange is part of the Third Pass Media Network. For more information, visit thirdpass.media. Do you have questions or comments? Send them along to nmi@thirdpass.media or via Twitter at nmipodcast.